Well, hey, my name is Ryan Earnhardt from CreativeSoundLab.tv, where audio recording is an art form. Well, today is part 7, the final video of our Mixing Drums Without Samples. It's been a huge series. I'm actually looking forward to covering some different topics. But it's been a great series. I've been giving you tons of different drum tracks. You could check out the links on the screen or in the description below if you'd like those drum tracks, along with the guitar, bass, and vocal for this song by Flint Ziegler. So here's what we're going to be learning today in a final video of the Mixing Drum series. Part 1 is just really learning how to group things together. So grouping the top and bottom snare mic, for example, grouping the two overheads together. This will buy us some processing power with our plugins. This will help glue some things together and help us gain some control when things get a little crazy in our mix. Part 2 is going to be about review of the real-life application of effects. So we don't always have to apply effects in the way that we learn them, being compression, EQ, gating. Sometimes we actually want to apply gating first, then compression, then EQ. So it's just going to be a real life application of typically how I do it. And part 3 is really just adding like bus effects. So like drum bus compression, and then stereo compression, things like that. So let's check it out. So up until this point in the series, we've been really focusing in on, very narrow-mindedly, adding compression or EQ or whatever. But in real life, you just got to go with the flow of things. And I found that, I didn't have enough control over my mix very quickly. There was too many tracks all at once. Maybe there was too many instances of plugins where I was running out of processing power. And so I started grouping things together. And the very first natural thing to group into one track and then add one copy of that plugin was, say, my overhead. And so I would kind of sum these into a track just adjacent to the left and right. You could call this a bus, and bus them together so that I can select the input of that bus and have them going into that one track. Usually I would do kind of a dash left right or a dash OH for overhead. The dash just helps me remind that it's multiple things coming in from a bus. Then I started doing the top and bottom together. Kick, I would always keep separate, but top and bottom, I'd group those together and bring them down. And so you have kind of a new hierarchy. You have kind of the individual tracks, but then you have maybe tom 1 and 2 can be grouped together. And so you really only have a couple tracks by the time you group things together and bring them down. This, the vocal could be its own thing to maintain flexibility. So now the goal is to have control of how things are being process them together, such as compression. It can work marvelously, but also just maintain control. So instead of having a million faders to manipulate, you can now easily take all these things and then take and have maybe a handful of faders instead of 10 faders for the drums. And then all those 10 can go into, say, your drums bus. So now this is a fader, and then I have my vocal, and then I have my, my background vocals. So now it's getting less and less. It's less and less to manipulate. And of course, I don't really automate a whole lot until the very end if needed, but really it's just all organization of how to group things together. So where this really comes into play is that you either have a limited amount of equipment or a limited amount of plugins. With plugins, you can just keep double clicking as long as you have that processing power, and obviously you can't do that with real world equipment. And so just grouping things together in buses enables you to allow all the different elements of your mix to really be a part of the party as it's happening, especially if you're using external equipment. You can be having basically everything in front of you without having to run one thing at a time. So you can be processing maybe all the drums together, and then the vocal, the bass, the guitars, and so on. So you only have to have maybe a handful of devices instead of 30 or 40 devices. And really a great guide for this of how to really group things together. And you may want to check this out. It's a lot more in depth than what I'm able to present in this episode. It's the Weathervane Mix Roadmap. and it's a really cool guide. You can see a link for that in the description. So as we've covered before, this process is very similar. We listen, then we decide on what we need first to make the mix work. We can add compression, then try some EQ, then gattings on the toms, etc. Now, usually the benefit to a lot of this stuff is that, instead of having to, apply a compressor for both of these overheads right here, you can instead put them into, a bus. Then from here, I can, add effects and, compressors. This is a stereo EQ, but, if I did want to, add a compressor that was actually a mono compressor. A good benefit to a plugin is that it'll run in stereo. So that's a great benefit to having an actual plugin. There's many times where I've done a lot of mixes where I have all the drums grouped together, but then I have the vocal just a straight shot to, the master stereo bus, the stereo out. Then I have the bass going, straight to the main fader, right? And so some things get kind of grouped together, some things go straight there. Another way that I've done things is where I'm literally doing everything through basically a stage of, some sort of auxiliary track, right? So no matter what, it goes through a bus, you could say. And then that way the bus has an opportunity to come out, be processed, and then be summed via analog and go back in. So it's not just a matter of some tracks being bussed and some tracks being, simple enough you don't need to, group them together. Even the vocals is a single track. You can still use a bus to stage that, and then from there you can be processing it to go wherever you need to. Now, one thing I really don't like about busing is really the limitations of control that you get, especially in something like toms or something. If it's just like a standard rock song where it's just a quick fill here and there, then I don't mind it at all. And I've done like the UAD 33609. You can flip it in like dual mono mode, so you can maintain kind of on either side of the panning, kind of a separate compressor. I've done that a lot. But at the same time, if it's something really important, like it's just a part of the groove, the drummer is just riding on the floor tom, for example, I probably won't want it, grouped together in the same bus with the high tom. So you really just have to use your judgment. Background vocals and things, definitely you could group together, but it really depends on how important something is. And also, electric guitar kind of hooks, one note kind of melodies that come in or sustain, themselves through a verse, maybe a little chicken pick part. Those type of things are not really supportive kind of things. They're really kind of the main deal. They're kind of the main attraction. So you just got to use your judgment on what you want to be grouping together. But really, it helps you stay organized, and you just want to make sure you don't group something together that doesn't really make musical sense. So there's a hierarchy of tracks going on here, and this is a matter of organization and a matter of applying effects like we've seen, and also just being able to take them out of your computer, process them, sum them, and bring them back in. So you have something like individual tracks. They're just going, at this point, without any routing, they're just going straight to my stereo bus here. That's not necessarily the best practice. So, like all these drums can go to one track here, and that track could be, can have effects on it and such. And in the end, we could end up with only just a handful of tracks, of which we usually have a handful of outputs to dispose of, and we have a handful of outboard gear and things like that, so we can process them using a little bit better resources. And also, while we're at it, we can analog sum and record back in. Now, there's a lot of people that they don't care about analog summing. They just sum in the box, and that's fine. There's some really fancy summing options, and there's some really cheap ones too, like the SB2, which is super basic and a cheap option for analog summing. So, really, I don't get too carried away on this. There's people that really fight online and argue back and forth. But to be honest, every time that you're taking something out and back in again, it's hitting your converters 2 times. And unless you have amazing converters, there's going to be some bad stuff that happens, some disadvantage to that. And so you have to consider, is it going to give me enough advantage that it'll be a big enough advantage that it'll outweigh the disadvantage? So right now I'm actually doing kind of a mix. I'm doing some busing, I'm doing some organization. It's mostly just in the box, in the DAW. And as far as some of you have actually asked, do I add effects to like the stereo bus and things like that? I typically try to leave stuff alone. I've shown you in other episodes how I add compression to like all the drums on the drums bus. That I do love doing. And maybe at the main mix, at the very final kind of stage. The problem is that a lot of times when you go back to make a correction, you'll forget that that's on, and so you'll be doing something and making adjustments, and next thing you know, you're like, why does it sound so compressed? What's the deal? And you realize that, you've been making judgments under this lens that these effects on, your buses have given you. So you have to really be careful about that stuff. I really don't depend on it to make a good mix. I always try to make a good mix based on the stuff that I have at the track level. Then for drums, I will group them together, try to get them kind of gelling together, process them together. Then I mix them in with other elements. I never depend on, the overall compression over the whole mix to make my drum sound. It's really important to get sounds that you're happy with before you add effects on the master bus. Now, one really cool thing, and I actually saw this on my friend Justin from Sonic Scoop, is that you can, there's a really cool technique he described. You can check out the video for that, and I'll put the link and an annotation on the screen for you if you'd like to use that as a reference for the full technique. But I'm going to go ahead and give it a shot. It seemed like a really cool idea, and I'm going to give it a shot. And basically what we're doing is playing this through a very fast, playing the entire drum track through a very fast compressor, the very fast attack time, and then giving crazy amounts of EQs in a big boost in the lows and the highs, and using that as a kind of a compression, a very heavy compression sound to fold up under our main drum sound here. So let's go ahead and check that out on the compressor first, and then the EQ, and we'll see what it sounds like. The compressor that I want to use for this, I want it to be really aggressive and full of flavor. And there's nothing like an 1176 style compressor. And for this, I'm going to be using the Warm Audio WA76. Let's check it out. At the moment, there's no compression. As I want to increase the compression, all I have to do is ramp up the input so it runs into that fixed threshold of the compressor. Now that I have a little bit of a compression going on here, I'm going to kind of experiment with the ratios and the attack and the release. We know for this we want a very fast attack. It's just a matter of setting the ratios and the release. Now that actually sounds pretty good. I'm able to, the threshold does lower just a little bit, so you have to readjust using the inputs. But I really do like that. The other method is to go kind of the opposite. Go ahead and put it into really a limiting mode here of 20-1. So we can control the perceived sustain of the drum by feathering the release here. And in any case, I'm hitting the reduction here about 7 dB of reduction. The attack is extremely fast, and the release is just feathered to taste here. I think for this, I'm just going to leave it kind of in the middle, maybe about right here or so. So the second part to this technique is really a boost in the lows, a boost in the highs, and a very aggressive boost at that. And this is the Warm Audio EQ PWA. I've really enjoyed using this thing. It's really smooth. It's really forgiving, if you can use that word. Basically, I just kind of go a little heavy on the knobs on this one. Really, I just go for it. I would never do that on a plugin, but this thing can really just handle whatever you want to try. At the same note, it can really tone shape any source that I seem to throw at it, and so it doesn't really mess up the sound like a lot of EQs tend to do. So it just lets me just kind of have some fun and go for something that sounds really cool. So let's check it out. I'm going to just be boosting some lows and some highs, and I'll go ahead and hit play on the audio. Yeah, so I'm going to keep it at there. This is going to be very, very subtly mixed in. So we're not actually really going to hear a whole lot of this track. I'm just going to kind of mix it in, I'd say about right here. And you know what? Let me just go ahead and take out this cut just so we can hear what the boost is doing. I'm just going to leave it as just a really simple boost and a simple boost in the highs at 10K. Let's check it out and see how it kind of is going to fold in to this drum boss. Okay, so let's check out this this track here. I went ahead and spent 3 minutes to go ahead and lay it down in here, and let's have a listen to what it sounds like folded up under our main mix. Okay, here's with it out. Here's with it in. And here's with it pushed. So it's really just a matter of taste of how loud you want to go with this, but the more trained your ear is as to what to listen for, the more you can make very subtle adjustments so that you don't overdo it. So there's been no shortage of stuff for you to download for this entire series. And instead of a PDF from me, I'd actually like to refer you to somebody else's resource. I don't have anything to do with this. This is just a really cool resource I think you should know about. It's called the Weathervane Mix Roadmap. And I've had a quick look at it. It's really well done. It's got tons of photos. It really is comprehensive. It goes through every single step of how to route tracks, how to bus tracks, and really how to group them in a repeatable process to stay organized. It also covers stuff about how to get out of the box and go into a big console and process there, and then sum and go back in. And It's just a really cool guide. You can check it out at the link in the description. So I'll be putting the link of where you can pick that up in the description. I'll see you next week.